I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Emily, for nearly 8 years. We met in college, and honestly, I thought we had a pretty solid relationship. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but I never had any real reason to suspect she was hiding something until this Christmas. It started subtly enough. Emily had been acting a little distant for a few weeks before the holidays. She'd cancel plans last minute, say she was busy with work when I knew damn well she was. She'd get defensive if I asked questions, brush it off with some bitchy comment about how I was being paranoid. But I just figured she was stressed or something, until I found her phone. See, I usually trust her completely. I don't go through her stuff, it's not my style. But that night I was trying to find my keys and noticed her phone sitting on the kitchen counter, unlocked for some reason. I wasn't snooping, I swear, I just wanted to grab my keys and go. But then I saw the messages. There were dozens of them. Flirty, intimate, downright nasty messages between her and my best friend Jake. They talked about how they couldn't wait to see each other again, how the night after Christmas would be so perfect, and even about what they'd do when they got alone. I couldn't believe my eyes. My heart sank. The last thing I expected to see was my wife planning some secret rendezvous with Jake, my best friend. It was like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen, reading words that made me feel sick. Emily lying about her plans, saying she was at some work dinner, all the while texting Jake about their sexcapades. That's when I finally realized the full scope of what was happening. My wife, my supposed partner, had been lying to my face for months and screwing my best friend behind my back during Christmas, of all times. I remember feeling this intense mix of anger and disbelief, like my mind was trying to shut down but couldn't. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there in black and white. I felt betrayed not just by her but by Jake too. How could my best friend do this to me? How could Emily, who always claimed she loved me, sit there and plan to cheat with someone I trusted implicitly? That night everything changed. My whole world felt shattered. I sat on the couch holding her phone, trembling. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do next. I just knew I couldn't ignore what I'd found. I had to confront her. But I also knew that the way she'd react could go in any direction. I was furious, but I also felt that gnawing sadness, like I'd lost something I'd never get back. When she finally came home that night, I made sure I was waiting. She looked surprised, maybe even a little smug at first, like she thought I was going to buy her lies again. But I didn't. I threw her phone on the table and just stared at her. She tried to brush it off, saying I was reading too much into things, that it was nothing, and called me paranoid. Yeah, right. That's when I saw it. The bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she could get away with something. I lost it then. I told her I knew everything. Her face fell and she started to lie, of course. She said it was all a mistake, just some stupid flirtation, nothing serious. She said Jake was just someone she'd been talking to for fun, that there was no sex, no plans, nothing concrete. That's what she kept repeating, trying to minimize it like I was overreacting. But I was. I could see through her bullshit. The worst part was how she spun her lies. She called me insecure, said I was overreacting because I was jealous or possessive. She told me I was imagining things, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me with Jake, my best friend. That's when I realized she'd been planning this for months, just waiting for the right moment to betray me during Christmas, and she had the nerve to act like I was the one in the wrong. I don't even remember what I said back to her. I just felt this cold rage building inside me, a sense of betrayal that I'd never known before. My wife, my best friend, my whole life apparently built on lies. I sat there in silence while she kept trying to convince me it was all innocent, that it was just sex, and I was overreacting. But I knew better. I knew that this was the end of what I thought was a marriage, and I was too hurt to even process it fully. That's where I am now, sitting here reliving it all, trying to figure out what to do next. I thought I knew her, thought I knew Jake, thought I knew my marriage. Turns out I knew nothing at all. And it hurts more than I can even put into words. After that night, everything changed for me. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I kept replaying that moment when I found her messages over and over in my head. Emily kept insisting it was all just a stupid fling, that it didn't mean anything, that Jake was just someone she'd been talking to for months. But I knew better. I saw what I saw. The way they talked, the things they planned. I didn't need her to say it wasn't serious. It was obvious she'd been planning this during our supposed marriage behind my back. The next day, I didn't even bother pretending to be okay. I stayed in bed most of the morning trying to process what had just happened. The betrayal hit me deep like a punch to the chest. I kept thinking about all the years we spent together, the holidays, the trips, the nights she'd sway her hips and tell me she loved me. All a lie, all fake. How could she lie to my face and then plan to cheat on me with my best friend? The thought made me sick. I knew I had to confront Jake too. I couldn't let him get away with it. I mean, how could he do this to me? Best friends are supposed to have some kind of code, right? But I guess that code was just a lie too. I found his number in her phone and called him first thing. When he answered, I could hear the guilt in his voice, like he knew he'd fucked up big time. I told him I knew everything and that if he ever wanted to see daylight again, he better stay the hell away from Emily. That call set off a chain reaction. Emily started texting me, trying to explain herself. She was calling me crazy, paranoid, and insisting she had no idea her messages looked like that. She claimed Jake was just a flirty friend, that she'd never slept with him, and that it was all a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but I'd seen the proof with my own eyes. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses, that I was done. I told her she'd missed her chance. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. I felt pissed off, betrayed, devastated, and confused all at once. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let things get so bad without noticing. I thought I knew her. I thought she loved me. Turns out I was just fooling myself. The girl I married, the girl I trusted, had been secretly planning this, probably during dinner dates, maybe even while we were watching movies together. That's what's hard to swallow. The lies, the betrayal, the fact that she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. At this point, I was furious enough to want to tear her apart, but I also felt this heavy sadness sitting in my chest. I'd been blind, naive, maybe even stupid for believing she'd never do something like this. All those moments when she brushed me off, said I was being paranoid, she knew all along what she was doing. And Jake, the same, my best friend, I never thought he'd be capable of this kind of treachery. I always trusted him. Now I see I was just a fool to think anyone was loyal anymore. I told Emily I wanted her out of the house. She started crying, trying to manipulate me, saying she still loved me, that she made a mistake, that she'd never meant to hurt me, but I didn't buy it. I told her to pack her bags and get the hell out. I couldn't stomach the idea of waking up next to her knowing what she'd done. I didn't want her near me anymore, not after she'd destroyed everything we had. As she packed her things, she kept swearing up and down that it was just a mistake, that she'd never do it again. She even tried to turn it around, saying I was the one to blame for not paying enough attention, for not satisfying her. She called me controlling and insecure, trying to make herself the victim, but I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I knew she'd been lying to me for months. I knew she'd been sneaking around, planning her escape, and I was just tired of being the fool. Now I sit here alone in what was once our home, trying to piece everything back together. I feel stupid for trusting her, for thinking I was enough. The pain of her betrayal still lingers, but somewhere deep down, I know I have to move on. I don't want to be that guy who's bitter forever, but right now, I just want to understand how someone I loved and trusted could do something so cruel. I keep asking myself if I should try to forgive her or just cut my losses and walk away. The honest truth, I don't know. All I know is that I can't go back to the way things were. Not anymore. The days that followed felt like hell. I spent hours just staring at the walls, replaying that night again and again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smug face, the messages on her phone. The way Jake texted her like they were both in some secret club, just waiting for the right moment to get caught. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her lies. I was furious at myself for trusting her, for thinking she loved me. And I was even angrier at Jake, my supposed best friend, for doing this to me behind my back. I remember the first time I tried to reach out to some friends for advice. I didn't want to burden anyone. I felt so humiliated and betrayed that I didn't even want to tell my family yet. but I needed to talk to someone who understood what I was going through. When I told them everything, their reactions ranged from shock to anger. Some said I should confront her again, demand answers. Others told me to cut her out completely, but all of them agreed on one thing: I deserved better than someone who could lie and cheat like that. I also started checking her social media, just to see if she'd posted anything that hinted at her new life with Jake. Honestly, I hoped she'd be stupid enough to gloat or to post some sassy comment that I could use as proof she was still lying. But she didn't. She just vanished. No new posts, no pictures, no sign of her anywhere. It was like she disappeared into the void. And in some twisted way, that made me feel a little better, like maybe she was trying to erase all evidence of her betrayal. Meanwhile, Jake kept silent. I was tempted to confront him directly, but I realized that might do more harm than good right now. Instead, I decided to focus on myself. I started going to the gym again, trying to clear my head and regain some sense of control. I told myself I needed to get out of this emotional hole I was in, no matter how much it hurt. I also began to think about what I wanted from my life moving forward. Did I want to try to fix this marriage? Or was it truly over? Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. After everything I found out, I couldn't see a way back. The trust was shattered, and I knew I'd never look at Emily the same way again. Every time I thought about her, I felt this wave of anger and disappointment. She'd lied to me, played me for a fool, and then expected me to just forgive her. That's not how I work. One day, I decided to confront her again. I wanted closure, even if I knew it probably wouldn't bring me peace. I called her, and she answered with that fake, innocent voice she always used when she wanted to manipulate someone. I told her I wanted to see her face to face to talk about everything. She hesitated for a second, then agreed. When she arrived, I was already furious. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew she lied, that I knew about her affair with Jake, and that I didn't want to hear any more excuses. She tried to deny it again, but I cut her off. I told her that I'd seen the messages, that I knew she'd been planning this all along, and that she'd been lying to me right to my face. She looked surprised, then angry. She said I was overreacting, that I was crazy for thinking such things. She claimed that I was jealous and possessive, and that I didn't understand her. Her voice was full of that bitchy attitude, the one she always used when she thought she was right. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her she was a selfish, lying bitch who had no respect for our marriage or for me. I told her that I'd had enough of her bullshit and that I wanted her out of my life. She started crying, trying to guilt-trip me, saying she still loved me and that it was just a mistake. But I knew better. I knew she'd been planning her escape for months, and I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. The confrontation was tense, and I felt my blood boiling. I told her that she'd broken my heart and that I never wanted to see her again. I told her she could take her lies and her cheating and go somewhere else. As she packed her things, she kept insisting that I was wrong, that I was overreacting, that she'd never do something so terrible. But I saw right through her. The bitchy smirk was gone now, replaced by that look of pure defiance. She thought she could manipulate her way out of this. As she finally left, I sat down on the couch, exhausted physically and emotionally. I thought I was strong, that I could handle anything. But losing her, seeing her betray me like that, it crushed me in ways I never expected. I kept asking myself how someone I loved and trusted so completely could turn into such a liar and cheat. It felt like my whole world had turned upside down in one night. I realized I'd never quite trust anyone the same way again. And honestly, I don't know how I'm supposed to move on from this mess. The days after she left were the hardest of my life. I'd wake up in the morning and for a moment, I'd forget she's gone, only to be hit with the reality that she's really out of my life now. Every corner of the house reminded me of her, her perfume on the pillow, the half-empty cup of coffee she always left in the morning, the way she used to smile at me like I was the most important person in the world. Now, all I had was this gnawing emptiness. I couldn't stop thinking about the betrayal, about how she had lied to me for months and how I'd been so blind to it. I kept going over the messages when I was alone, trying to piece together how I missed all the signs. She always called me insecure when I questioned her, but I realized now she was just playing me. She knew exactly what she was doing, every lie carefully crafted, every moment of supposed love just a mask. I also kept thinking about Jake, my best friend. How could he do this to me? How could he betray me like that with my wife? I wanted to call him, scream at him, tell him exactly what I thought, but I stopped myself. Instead, I decided to give him some space. I figured when I was ready, I'd confront him, but right now I needed to focus on myself. I needed clarity. I started going back to the gym, something I'd always enjoyed but had dropped off during our marriage. It helped, at least a little, to hit the weights and run on the treadmill, to feel like I was still in control of something. I also began to see a counselor, just to talk through everything. It was embarrassing at first, admitting I'd been so blindsided, so stupid for trusting her blindly, but I knew I had to process the pain if I was ever going to heal from this. In the meantime, Emily kept trying to contact me, sending vague messages about how she regrets everything, how she never wanted it to happen, and that she was sorry for the pain she caused. I didn't respond. Honestly, I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. I told myself I deserved better than someone who could treat me like that, who could cheat and lie and then expect me to just forgive her. Friends and family started to find out what had happened. It was humiliating, but I didn't care anymore. I told my brother everything and he was furious. He wanted to hunt Jake down and give him a piece of his mind, but I told him to hold off. I wasn't ready for vengeance. Not yet. I just needed time to breathe, to work through the betrayal. One thing I realized is how much this whole experience has changed my perspective on trust. I used to think marriage was about loyalty, honesty, and working through problems together. Now I see it's more fragile than I thought. It can shatter in an instant if the right person betrays you. And the worst part is, I still love Emily, or at least I did. That part of me still hopes she'll come back and say she made a mistake. But deep down, I know that's just wishful thinking. I also thought about what I want moving forward. Do I want to try and fix things? Or is it better to just cut ties altogether? Honestly, I don't have the answer yet. Right now, I feel like I'm stuck in limbo, caught between pain and hope, anger and sadness. I know I need to make a decision soon, but it's not easy. I keep telling myself I've survived worse, that I've been through tough times before, and I will get through this. One day I woke up and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a guy who had been broken, but also someone who was starting to stand tall again. It's strange how pain can change you, make you more cautious, more guarded. But I also see a little flicker of resilience. I tell myself I'll get past this, that I'll find a way to move on, even if it feels impossible right now. So I sit here, writing this out, trying to make sense of everything. It's a long road ahead, no doubt. I still have to confront Jake, decide what to do about Emily, and figure out how to rebuild my trust in myself. But I know one thing for sure. I won't let her or him define my future. I'll take my time, heal, and come out stronger. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal is painful, but it's also a wake-up call. And I refuse to be that guy who gets played again. Not now, not ever. The weeks went by in a blur of pain, frustration, and moments of clarity. I kept telling myself I was better off without her, that I deserved someone who wouldn't betray me or treat me like an afterthought. But honestly, some nights I still lay awake, thinking about what could have been if she hadn't screwed everything up. I guess part of me still clings to that tiny hope that maybe, just maybe, she'll realize what she threw away. But deep down, I know that's just wishful thinking. I started to focus more on myself. I got back into work, threw myself into projects I'd been neglecting, and began building a new routine that didn't include her. I even went out a few times with friends, just to remind myself that life still goes on. What struck me the most was how many people have gone through similar stuff, some even worse, and somehow managed to pick themselves up. That gave me a little hope, even if it was small. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the image of Jake. I kept replaying that night I saw those messages, the way he lied to my face, the way he thought he was untouchable. I knew I had to confront him sooner or later. I didn't want to let this go unaddressed. So one afternoon, I reached out and told him I needed to talk. He responded with a vague sure, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. I told him to meet me somewhere neutral, somewhere I could finally get some closure. When I saw him sitting across from me in that coffee shop, his face looked Guilty, I didn't waste any time. I told him straight up what I knew, how much he'd betrayed me. I didn't yell or scream, I just kept it simple, cold, measured. I told him I trusted him as my friend, and now I saw how much he'd lied. I asked him why he did it. His excuse was weak, something about being caught up in the moment, feeling lonely, and stupidly thinking I'd never find out. Yeah, that was a load of crap. I told him I didn't want to hear any more lies. He looked ashamed, but I was. I told him I never wanted to see him again, that he was dead to me now. I told him he'd broken our friendship beyond repair, and I meant it. That moment was bitter, but it felt good to finally say the things I'd been holding inside. It was like tearing out a wound that had been festering for months. I'd been betrayed by the two people I trusted most in this world, and I wasn't going to pretend it didn't hurt. As for Emily, I kept my distance. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I didn't want to see her pretend to be remorseful anymore. I realized I was better off without her lies clouding my mind. I had to learn how to be alone, how to trust myself again, how to rebuild what was broken. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. In the process, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, even if I felt weak most of the time. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also forces you to look at your life and ask what really matters. I found that I still had hope, but it was the kind that comes from within. Hope that someday I'll find someone who truly values me, who won't lie or cheat. One thing I've realized is that sometimes life throws terrible things at you, and there's no way around it, only through it. The pain, the anger, the disappointment, they're all part of the process. I've had to accept that I can't change what she did, but I can choose how I respond. I can let it destroy me, or I can use it as a lesson to be more cautious, more aware, more resilient. So I'm here now. Still healing but moving forward. I don't know what the future holds, and honestly I don't trust her or Jake anymore. But I do trust myself. I know I'll be okay, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. I've lost a lot, but I've gained something too. Knowledge that I won't be a fool again, that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. And that's what I'll hold on to as I try to rebuild what's left of my life. Looking back now, I realize that this whole mess has changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I was just devastated, heartbroken, angry, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut every single day. But over time, I've started to see it differently. I learned that betrayal, as painful as it is also a brutal but honest mirror. It shows you who really matters and who doesn't. It forces you to reevaluate your life and priorities, and most importantly, it pushes you to find strength you never knew you had. I've come to accept that trust isn't something you can take for granted anymore. It's fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fully restore. But I also know that I can trust myself to make better choices, to recognize red flags sooner, and to value my own well-being above all. That's a hard lesson, but a necessary one. I don't blame myself for trusting Emily. People like her make you believe in fairy tales. But now I understand that fairy tales aren't real, and life is sometimes just about surviving the storm and picking up the pieces afterward. One thing I hold on to is the realization that I don't have to be defined by this betrayal. I refuse to let her actions steal my happiness or my sense of worth. Yes, I was hurt deeply. I still am in some ways, but I am also healing. Every day I remind myself that I am better than the pain she caused. I am stronger, more cautious, and more aware of what I need from a real partner. I also want to say that no matter how dark things seem right now, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It might take time and it might be messy, but healing is possible. I've started to rebuild my life, piece by piece, with honesty and clarity. I've learned to forgive myself for the times I ignored the signs, and I've forgiven her for the hurt she inflicted. Not because I think she deserves it, but because I need to let go for my own peace of mind. In the end, I hope this serves as a reminder for anyone out there going through something similar. If you find yourself betrayed, remember that your worth isn't determined by someone else's actions. Trust your instincts, lean on your friends and family, and don't be afraid to walk away from what's toxic. Happiness comes from within, and even in the darkest moments, there's a chance to rebuild and find a better future. So here I am, still standing, still healing, still learning, and with each passing day I'm slowly reclaiming my peace. I might never forget what happened, but I will definitely move forward stronger and wiser than I was before. That's all I can ask for.